Hey there, it's Derek from Pacific Coast Auto in Japan. Today we're taking a look at a JZX90 Toyota Chaser. This one's been modified a little bit. Has just under 200,000 kilometers. Comes with the inline 6-cylinder 1JZ twin turbo engine. These engines put out 280 horsepower through a rear-wheel drive chassis. And while it looks kind of Camry-like, people who know these cars know what they are. These are very popular cars in drifting, due to a long wheelbase and extreme reliability. Now this one has no muffler on it, so I'm going to switch the engine off. It's loud enough for the police to come and say, "Look, your car is too loud, brother." And I'll say, "I'm sorry, it's not my car really." Take a look, the door lights, I don't know if you can see that, the door lights flash. It's like a modification for door light flashing. Okay, these 1JZ engines are a 2.5 liter twin turbo that puts out 280 horsepower, and like I said, they are super killer reliable engines. They can go nearly forever in terms of being a turbocharged engine. Similar to the 2J, but smaller displacement. I quite like the way that these feel though. They feel less bulky than the 2J, a little bit more rev happy, and yeah. Very, very nice engine indeed. Every time I drive a car with this engine, I'm like, that is so much more fun. And like, I always think this, when this car came out, it was like early 90s that these came out. It must have blown everything else away, because even nowadays, they're fantastic cars compared to, you know, what's this? Kanto Auto Works. That's a little bit weird. Maybe it's been modified more than I thought it has been. Anyways, let's take a look at what we have here. And so aftermarket oil cooler here, lots of rows. I did not want to count them, but I don't know, is that 10? 9 rows? Aftermarket air filter, aftermarket HID, there's the ballast there. You have a Zenki adjustable suspension for height and dampening adjustments. There's a blow-off valve up here. Okay. The cover's been removed off of the top of the engine so you can see the coil packs. I wouldn't be able to notice if it's different coil packs in there, but they do look like the original ones. The twin turbos are inside this mess of piping. I can't really see them. Excuse me. Oh, GT12A. That looks like it's possibly an upgrade to a larger turbo. I bet this car rips. Okay, aftermarket intercooler hosing on it. I'm not sure if the GT12A is aftermarket, but it looks like it is. 2006, the timing belt was changed at 116,735 kilometers. So the car was bought from auction for export to the USA. We're honestly not selling an awful lot of these. There are tons and tons of people that want them, but usually when people find out the prices of them, they end up getting a Sylvia instead. They're close to the same price as the RX-7, the FD. Actually, we got there's one over there. Don't look at it too much. It's broken. It actually has a broken tire. A little bit cheaper than those, but the RX-7 is a kind of a hotter car, one that's going to attract more attention, and so there's definitely a lot of people that are interested in that one. This is a better car though. The RX-7s are only 2-seaters and they're not nearly as reliable, and I don't know, this one's a more comfortable, fast, grown-up car. Not to say that I don't like the FD, as I very much do. Anyways, the 95 Chaser Tourer V. The Tourer V is the twin turbo version. Also, if you look for the chassis number, the JZX, where is that on here? The JZX means the twin turbo engine. The 90 is the series. And so the GX90 is the non-turbo version. This is an auction grade R because it's been in an accident, interior C. The seller says LSD. And yeah, it's one of those LSDs that's made for drifting. So when you go around corners, like in a parking lot, it'll go gung, 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 as it's threatening to catch on the LSD. That's by design for those, and so there's nothing broken with it. It has a front mount intercooler, I didn't mention that, and a blow-off valve. They didn't mention anything about the possible turbo upgrades or oil cooler or other things like that. Sometimes on modified cars you'll find extra little goodies. Looking at the diagram here, barely any marks on it. There's an A1 minor scratch, A2 is minor scratch, minor. Well, A2 is a medium, technically. If you take a look though, it's actually pretty good. I don't see a scratch, but I do see paint flex cracks in this area. Maybe that's what they were talking about. Anyways, to the rest of the inspection here. So it says audio has been removed, leaving a hole in the dashboard. Windshield rock chip and dirty and wear. Now, because it's been in an accident, they list any areas in this section that have been repaired from the accident. So it says center panel cracked. That's actually not accident, pardon me. That's on the interior. I'll show you that when we get there. Extra gauge in the car, aftermarket driver's seat and exhaust and suspension and air filter, intercooler and oil cooler. So these are all from the inspector. He's writing these just to make sure you know what you're buying. Front floor and end panel wrinkled. And so what a wrinkle is it gets bent from the accident and then they bend it back into shape. And then when you do that, you'll get some deformation in the metal naturally. Oil has a minor leak. Usually that's just sweats on the engine, nothing to worry about. Aftermarket wheels are out of spec. And the body has various scratches and dents. Now, they didn't mention on here, the paint on it is actually not very good. The paint is non-glossy in a number of areas, like it's been faded. And so it needs to have some sort of a restoration. It's not bad. There's basically no dents in it, almost no scratches in it. It's just a little bit dull. And that's something you may be able to repair with like a ceramic coating from a body shop. I'm not entirely sure. Okay, so it has a modification to the front bumper. You'll be able to see when I pull around. They cut out spokes of the original front bumper in order to give more airflow to the front mount intercooler. Side skirts and the rear bumper spats have been put on, but they come from a different car, so they don't quite fit perfectly. Try not to get the people in the background. Ooh, look at this. It's moss. Okay, the person has passed. Now we have a JZX90 again. It looks very Japanese style with the muffler sticking out like, well, I mean, there's no muffler, but the tailpipe sticking out like that. The wheels on it, I'm not sure what car that they come from. They have Lexus badges on them though. They look like original equipment wheels from possibly like a GS, a later model GS or something. They're 18 by, if I were to guess, fronts are 7.5s, rears are 8.5s. Rears are 245 tire, fronts are 225. 225 on an 8. 7.5, yeah, that's about right. Okay, so let me show you what I was talking about with the bumper. So they cut these fins out in order to make more clearance and more airflow for the front mount. The license plate would go there, but if you put an offset license plate, you get more airflow through the radiator. So some people will do that. Chaser. It's a bow and arrow and a North Star. Headlights are a bit foggy. This is the era of the plastic headlights, or at the beginning of it. And looks like the front bumper lip is separating a little bit from the bumper. You can see the oil cooler through there, just a little bit. Maybe you can't. I can. I can in real life. So, lowered suspension. I think it looks good. I think it's. I'll go to the interior in just a second here. Just want to show the looks of the car. And really, if you haven't driven one of these, you're going to be so surprised how nice it is to drive. They are fantastic. Double wishbone suspension front and rear. It's a medium-sized car, but handles very much like a smaller car. And it kind of has so much 90s goodness that it's just like, cars in the 90s were just so good. Okay, so door cards here. We got power windows on all windows. Power folding door mirrors, which you won't be able to do. Speaker and Moog speaker. Aftermarket steering wheel and a boost gauge right there behind the steering wheel. In my opinion, the wrong location for a boost gauge, but it is cheap to mount them there, I guess. You wouldn't want the boost gauge getting in the way of your tachometer, because if you're going to be driving aggressively, that's almost the only gauge that matters. Boost gauge is fun to take a look at, but unless you're worried that you're not getting any more boost, it's not a gauge that you have to look at very much. For like a half a second as you step on the gas, you'll have no boost, and then we'll go up to your max boost and it'll just stay there for the whole time. Just shift and then watch it go to max. Yeah, it's not that informative. Tanita, I don't know that brand. And a Momo Prototipo. Alright, it is spaced too close to the steering column. So you can space it out if you want. It depends on what kind of driver that you are. And the seats actually goes back pretty far. Let me just show. That's further than I would need. I usually have seats in the full back position for the cars that I drive, and it sits lower by about 1 inch compared to a normal seat, or the stock seat in these. And 1 inch can make a big difference in how sporty the car feels, just because you're lower to the ground. Okay, so here's the crack in the console they were talking about. It's up here. Okay. This is a climate control AC, so you get to set the temperatures here, or you can do it manually. So if you wanted like 25 degrees, you just set that at 25 degrees. A lot of Japanese cars had these from the early 90s on, when the American equivalents of the same cars didn't have them. Like the CRX in Japan has full climate control on, I think, every version of it, but certainly on the SIs. These pieces are missing. So the ash tray is in there. Okay. And it has graffiti. Cool. Now usually these dashboards will warp with the heat. This one's not warped that much. It is a little bit around here and a tiny bit up here, but it's way better than most of them. And one of the downsides of 90s Japanese cars. 5-speed manual. The 5 speeds are more than twice the price of the autos. An auto is still a great car to buy for these, but the 5 speeds are more for obvious reasons. People want to drive them hard, and they're just so much fun to shift through the gears and wait for the turbo to come in. Modern cars are faster with their turbos, but the old 90s cars, when you wait for the turbo, 80s cars are even better for this. It's sort of like waiting for a good thing. Like if you can get everything that you ever wanted right away, you wouldn't appreciate it as much. So maybe an old school turbo is kind of like that. Okay. Sunroof, but it doesn't work right. I could get it tilted up and then tilted back down, but the buttons didn't function properly. Bigger size trunk than a Supra, by almost twice as big, which is kind of funny because it's a smaller car than the Supra. Well, maybe it's about the same size. No rust underneath the mat here, so that's good. And a wiper's been removed and replaced with this little thing. And Taniguchi Automotive. You can go to the website and check out what that means. I don't know what it means. Okay, so let me just show you quickly here the fitment of that spat piece. There's a lot of flex cracks in the back bumper here, and I'm not sure how well you noticed the lack of shine, but if you take a look at the trunk compared to the fender here, you can probably see it. And that goes like down here as well. See how it's kind of shiny, half of the door here? Yeah. And so it may need some paint work before it's looking really good, or at least body work to brighten it up. I'm not too sure. But nonetheless, if you don't buy a JZX90 now, you will never buy one in your life, because by the time that you have enough money for one, or enough will for one, they'll be more expensive. So there it is. Of course, if you have any questions, let me know. But otherwise, thank you so much, and have a nice day.